It was my first night performing on stage. I was supposed to dance, and then segue into singing an original version of the Beatles song, I Want to Hold Your Hand. But Matty had been drinking again and kept dropping his drumsticks. Glenn finally got tired of it and told him to go home and forget about getting paid. Matty's girlfriend started yelling at Glenn, and then she climbed up on the stage in the middle of the second chorus, and the audience just went wild. They thought it was part of the show, and half of them were clapping and cheering. The other half would have thrown tomatoes if they'd been handy. Without the drums, the song fell flat pretty quick, so we let the music die out while Glenn pulled the girlfriend off stage, and we jumped right into an ear-splitting rendition of Johnny Be Good. It wasn't until right before the end of our last set that we noticed the audience wasn't making any more noise. We could see hundreds of swaying lighters as we sang the last slow song, but not a peep from the crowd. The final chords were dying out, and we were making our way off stage, but still the lighters swayed. Glenn stepped up to the mic and announced that the concert was over with absolutely no effect. It was like the audience was hypnotized or something. He shrugged and turned to pack up the rest of the equipment. The auditorium lights all came on as we were making our way to the exit, but no fans met us on the outside. As we drove around the front of the building, the doors were still closed and no one was leaving. The marquee lights were on, flashing and sparkling over the sign that read, Boston Gems featuring Donna one night only. Glenn pulled the van over to the curb on the next block, and we waited a few minutes to see what would happen. Our eyes were glued to the entrance doors for what seemed like an hour, but was really only about 20 minutes or so. Finally, Glenn couldn't stand not knowing what was going on. He decided to go back to the auditorium through the side doors and take a peek so he could see what the heck was going on in there. We couldn't talk him out of it. I wasn't letting him go by himself, and we all piled out of the van and walked quietly back to the building. It was silent all the way up to the exit door. Even when we opened it, we couldn't hear a sound. No shuffling, no coughing, nothing to indicate there were over 1,000 people that had never left the building. Glenn opened the curtain to see down into the audience. We all craned our necks to see past him. The lights were still on, but nothing could have prepared us for what we were looking at. In front of the stage was row after row of empty chairs. We all gasped about the same time, a collective whoosh that was startling in itself. But where there should have been people picking up jackets and purses and finding their way to the entrance, there was nothing, no people, not a single person was left in the building, no one but us. To this day, we've never talked about it to anyone. Who would believe us? We were too traumatized to even discuss it. We never saw Matty again after that performance. The band broke up about a month later and we all went our separate ways. I saw Glenn last year and I almost didn't recognize him. He's in a wheelchair and I'm pretty sure he saw me, but he didn't seem to remember who I was. I will never know the truth of what really happened that night. I have pictures I took before the show started, or I might be able to convince myself the whole thing was just a dream. For one night only, I sang in front of a live audience, I think.